Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to get started here in just a few seconds. Wanted to let everybody know that's on the webinar that you can ask questions. We prefer you put it in the question box since you do not have the mic. And after the chat, then we will answer all questions that we're able in the question area. So we'll be starting here in just a sec. Good afternoon, everybody. We're really excited to have really one of our newest partners. We've just been partnered for 6 weeks, and what you're going to learn today is why. So today we are with Sumo Logic, and they are going to talk about their centralized log management and analysis. I'm out of breath. Sorry, guys. I think that one of the things that attracted us to Sumo Logic and a lot of our newer partners is security has to change because the bad guys continue to change. And one of the things I really liked about Sumo when we first met you guys, and I kind of debated whether we would even partner with you, once I learned what you were doing, and of course bring Dan and Phil in, you really are attacking things the right way. And this is what I hope you can educate our customers on today, because you're here for a reason. And with everything going on lately, this is just one of those times where I think it'll be a great chat for all.
Yeah, well, Tammy, I really appreciate you inviting us to participate in this. Talking about Sumo is something that I love to do. I joined the company about 5 years ago, and I joined from another company that has to do with security and infrastructure, and that's VMware. And I was on the front lines of rolling out the network virtualization solution, which was really trying to address security in a totally different way, which was at that kind of abstracted layer that's far enough away from the infrastructure that you've got isolation, close enough to that you have isolation, but close enough to the application that you saw insights to what was going on. And when I made the decision to move, I started looking at Sumo, and I wanted to be with a company that was really looking at what was going to be required around security and operations for the next decade. And we were at early days 5-6 years ago in the shift to digital and cloud. And wow, have things changed and accelerated. I'm excited to tell you some stories.
Well, I'm going to ask you for a story right up front, because I think everybody likes to hear something funny. Obviously, the news is not funny lately. Actually, it can be quite depressing. Yeah. But we ask everybody that comes on with us, there's got to be something that's happened, whether it's at work or home, that just cracked you up. So if you have something like that you could share with our audience, that'd be awesome.
Oh my God, the stories that are cracking me up. Well, the thing that is super funny. I grew up in Alaska, and every year about this time I go up for king salmon season. And unfortunately, with this COVID thing going on, if I go up, I've got to quarantine for 14 days. Yeah. So my mom, in all her sweetness, wanted me to feel like I had something from home. So she actually sent me this club, which is in the shape of a piece of salmon that is called a strip club. And so she wanted me to have a piece of it. And it's I'm missing salmon season, and I'm missing Alaska, but at least I've got this salmon club that's sitting here with me.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love it.
I'm hoping to get up by the end of the season. We'll see what happens.
That's great.
Yeah, fantastic. Hey, Aaron, you touched on it, but for those that don't know Sumo Logic, can you basically give just a high-level overview, and then we'll drill down into some of the details during this chat session?
Yeah, you bet. So Sumo Logic started about 9-10 years ago with a very simple concept that said, let's use the power of cloud computing to build a multi-tenant service, a service that made it easy to ingest any kind of data structure, mostly machine data, so logs and events, traces, that type of thing, and turn it into insights quickly. So apply the power of cloud computing to make it really easy to ingest and structure and drive insights for multiple use cases of that data. And we really started in the log space, and now we've grown to what we believe to be really a really important piece of intelligence layer for any organization, wherever they're operating at any size, that's allowing them to get real-time insights as a service, and to do it in a way that's valuable for a whole array of IT or business users who need to see in real time what's going on. So that's Sumo in a nutshell. We serve about 2,000 companies now around the world, from small companies that are just adopting the cloud, or starting a digital initiative that's serving customers in new ways, all the way up to huge companies that are sending us 50 to 60 terabytes a day of log and event data that they just need to see what's going on.
Yeah, and I know one of the real things that differentiates you from some other company is that you built your technology in the cloud from the ground up.
Yeah.
Can you maybe explain to the audience why that is so important?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we realized was that, or what we had the idea that said, okay, if all this is shifting to digital and things are moving from on-premise to the cloud in some ways, and the whole architecture of applications were starting to change, that we needed to make it really easy for almost limitless, looking at a limitless amount of data, and to find the insights in that. In many ways, what people thought of was the exhaust. So the logs and metrics, that's the offshoot of these applications. And when we decided to build it, we decided that, okay, let's use the operating model and economic model and architectural model of modern apps and the cloud, because it would allow us to do and evolve our service at the same pace of these kind of modern apps. So we serve, these 2,000 companies and 100,000 plus users, looking at 40 or 50 million searches across that data a day, of 300 to 400 petabytes of data, and we don't own a server. So we are the archetype of a modern service built for the modern kind of application, and the teams that are responsible for securing those. That's just a dramatically different model than the traditional kind of on-premise model.
Yeah, exactly right. And in this COVID world where cash is king, your operational expense model really makes a big difference to those folks that are wanting to hold on to cash, because there's really no cash outlay, right? And that's a big advantage also.
Yeah, and Phil, to that point, when you have an architectural model of a multi-tenant service, it allows you to do some really interesting things. So one of the drivers for us is to be able to look at data differently. Our security customers have different compliance requirements, and they might not want to keep a data set hot for a long period of time, but they need to have access to that over potentially a year or two or even more for compliance requirements. So we're able to use our architecture to look at data differently and to store it differently within the systems. So we might have a customer that's running a continuous model, and they're paying for a continuous model that's where data is always hot for a specific security requirement that they might have if they're searching for something or trying to really noodle down to something. But they might also have a set of data that they might have 70% of their data that they want to look at, but they don't really need to have access to. And so we create within the architecture a way to look at that as in an infrequent or much more cold storage. So being able to have the economic model of a multi-tenant architecture allows us to solve some really important things, not just for our ops folks, but for our security folks. Because quite frankly, data is growing and the threats are growing much faster than budgets. So we feel like we can address those things architecturally by having a service that's multi-tenant and allowing us to look at data and treat it differently.
Right. And one thing that I really like about Sumo Logic is the aspect of, from the fundamental premise of our security team is that we want to make our customers more effective and we want to make them more efficient, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really like is any of those security standards or tools that they might already have in place, Sumo can ingest that extremely fast, right? And that's a big help, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think, Phil, you're bringing up the big challenge for all of our customers, which is things are changing so quickly and the threats are getting so big and the requirements to move forward, though, are so clearly from the board level down that we just don't have the pool of talent to address it. So it's not even that we don't and our customers don't have the ability to hire those people. Those people just don't exist. So if you're not driving automation in new and creative ways, you're not going to keep up with what you need to. So that's why we do things like what we do with our cloud SIM. You know, we've built a heads up display that not just lets you know where you need to pay attention to, but really addresses the issues of alert fatigue that our joint customers are facing when there's so many things going on. So you've got this heads up display that allows you to see in real time what's going across all these different data sets and all these different tools, because we've got out of the box applications for those. And you can really kind of root down quickly into what you need to pay attention to. That's just straight automation based on best in class understanding of the problems and being able to kind of root back down into the troubleshooting component when you need it. But sometimes you just need a really good technology and platform to address things like alert fatigue that, quite frankly, you could never hire enough people to handle.
So can you say anything or anything you've seen? Obviously, we've had a big change in the last few months, right? COVID-19. Obviously, one of the reasons we started doing this chat that you've seen with existing customers, or has that affected you guys in any way?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Everybody's reacting to COVID. Every industry, everybody, including Sumo. If we look at ingest, so how much data is being sent to us, our business is absolutely growing through this because more people are spending more time on those priority requirements of digital initiatives where they can serve their customers better in a digital way. And on the other hand, how is it that they enable productivity by their teams working from home? And that's where Sumo and Champion are able to help customers in terms of how do they kind of navigate those two things? How do they do more of these initiatives that are serving customers? How do they enable the productivity and health and wellness of their folks that are working from home? So this will be something that we think will actually accelerate adoption of new models, and Sumo's positioned to serve both of those requirements. And we're seeing an uptick in the use of our service because of that. Of course, at a detailed level, we're absolutely seeing an increase in our core partners with CrowdStrike and Okta and others. We also just did an interesting joint announcement with VMware around how they're trying to create some next generation SOC environments. So this is an exciting time for us. We're serving those in new ways, both at a strategic level, but also at a very tactical level. I'll tell you, when we went out with a work from home suite, when we went out with the out of the box application for Zoom security, that thing was like hotcake, because they were having such issues. And you have to be able to address those issues fast. And the responsibility in some ways is on companies like Champion and Sumo to help customers, because Zoom can't do all of those things. So that's one of the exciting places. How do we kind of leverage these big trends that are going to accelerate and do it in creative ways?
Yeah, and I found it interesting with all these things going on, and on your guys' website, you actually have, like, to me, which people should have had a response plan, that emergency wellness plan, but you guys explicitly put it out there with COVID-19, and I think it uncovered some of the things that people should have had all along. But obviously, people are forced into this. But it was interesting because you even called out things, not only, hey, the leadership team taking a command running forward, but you even talked about, that virtual workforce, all these people that had to go virtual.
Yeah.
And I thought it was different because it really, in one ways, it really has nothing to do with your technology, but it was a guideline, and I found it kind of refreshing that you guys put that out there to kind of give offering and advice, a whole management series there of how to be a leader during something like this, for an
Well,
example.
this is the thing. We're a technology company. We're also just a traditional business with a set of cultural values and a team that's struggling to work from home. And we've got junior folks who are isolated, and we've got senior people who have been through economic crisis, right? So we're all facing these things. It started as a pandemic that quickly turned into a economic crisis that's now really kind of taxing all of us mentally. So, one of the things we did is right at the beginning is we stood up our emergency management council, and, we looked at it across certainly how do we maintain our service that our customers depend on. And we had to make sure that, we've got engineering and support services from Poland to India, and we need to make sure that Sumo's up. But before that, we have to make sure that our employees are healthy and have what they need to be productive. And then lastly, we deal with how do we make sure that the business is in a strong place to kind of navigate through that.
Yeah, because I find it interesting, and I think a lot of people, I think a lot of us do want to go back to the office. You're getting itchy sitting at home with a barking dog, Tammy.
Yeah.
But in the same respect, there's also a bell to me that has been rung that'll never be unrung, right?
Yeah.
To be able to work from home, not having to travel for those people that had bad commutes. So I think the shift in business will forever be changed going forward as well.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dan. I think it's interesting that you're starting to see, and certainly at Sumo and other places, we spend a lot of time focused on how we returning to the office. And, every state, every county has a different set of regulations. Now we think that it's less about how do we return and more of how do we drive productivity and innovation in this current time, and it's going to be with us for a while. So in some ways, things have just changed, and they won't go back to what they were.
Yep, I absolutely agree with that from that standpoint.
Now, the exciting thing is if you have a mindset that says, okay, how do we innovate? How do we look at things new? How do we deliver more value to customers and create a culture of engagement? Then I think you're going to win. At Sumo, one of the things that's a cultural value of ours, one of the 5 that we have, it's around this concept of a learning culture. And a learning culture allows us to try to respond quickly to things. And never is that more important than for security practitioners and security experts who are, quite frankly, trying to solve things that none of us ever expected we would have to try to solve.
Yep, that always throws a good monkey wrench in there, right?
Yeah. Hey, I was going to jump in here, guys. I think we're getting close to our 20 minutes, but there's one thing, actually, I kind of have 2 things for you, Aaron, but one of them is when you mention your SIM, and we've talked about it, built in the cloud, made for the modern apps. People out there have a lot of those traditional solutions, and yet there's newer ones coming out. I don't want you to go through some technical, review, but when you set yourself apart from what's out there today, like the QRadars or even the Microsoft Sentinel, just very shortly, what do you feel is the number one thing that sets you apart from those that, new or older solutions? Yeah.
So let me first make sure that I clarify. We are pure cloud and SaaS, but we ingest data from all different data sources. So, 30% plus of the data that's coming into Sumo is coming off of on-premise tools and technologies. And certainly for remote homes and endpoint devices and all of those things. So we're a pure service in that we are delivered and consumed as a service, but we're supporting all of that infrastructure, including much of that existing security infrastructure. The thing is, you need a place though that's that kind of central hub. How we differentiate ourselves is we're a cloud native solution. So we're evolving and serving the dynamic nature of the new threats. Yeah. And that's the big thing that's different. And we are purpose built for the dynamic world of microservices and containers and orchestration and automation of digital-oriented assets, where your business logic is the digital asset. And we were purpose-built for that. How do you secure those things? How do you not just drive compliance of it, but how are you driving the requirements in terms of workflow automation for these new workflows?
Hey, Aaron, this has to be our last question. I don't want to go over. We promised folks that we'll only do 20 minutes, but you mentioned your work from home solution. How do we get that to our customers? Because I think that's something that everybody hears remote, and everybody's offering something, but what exactly can we offer the folks?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the things that we did when this started is that we packaged up an offering that has all of our apps, our work from home apps, and we also extended the trial of it. So we want to remove the obstacle for folks trying that. So with Champion and Sumo together, we should be able to get our customers and join customers up and trying this stuff. And if it works and deliver value, then we can talk about how we take it to the next phase. But the nice thing about SaaS, and the important thing about right now, is people need to start using these new technologies today.
Yeah, you're very, very clear on that, and we're all concerned about it. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Before we wrap up, I just wanted to share with everybody out there before we move to questions what the next webinar is, and that is on June 4th. It's Stop Ransom Dead in Its Tracks: Containment and Quick Remediation Techniques with Bullwall. A lot of you probably never heard of Bullwall. Also a newer a newer partner of ours that we will be introducing you to. So thank you, everybody. We'll go to questions now.
All right. All righty. Who's handling the questions? Phil?
Well, let me just...
Tammy, you watching the question chat there?
There, I'm unmuted. Hey guys, I just said the wrong thing. What is next week is actually Trend Micro. I was looking up above it and I apologize, but Trend Micro is the chat next week, avoiding cloud misconfigurations and best practices around cloud security. So sorry about that. Now for questions, since I did that, I'll let Phil see if there's any out there and start with those.
So we've got you here. So maybe Don and Dana won't mind trying to take one of these. One is, if we're all cloud, what is the lag time to collect data from our environment and then send it to your Sumo cloud?
There we go. Hey, thanks for that.
Yep.
I think I heard the question. It was about what is the lag time, basically?
Yeah. So if one customer is asking if he is running his applications in a public cloud, like Azure,
Yeah.
what is the lag time to collect data and then send it to your Sumo cloud?
Well, that would be pretty much near real time. We've got multiple different ways of bringing in data from different public cloud provider sources. Of course, we're running natively ourselves in AWS, but wouldn't be a feat to pull in from GCP or from Azure. We've got multiple different API connectors that help facilitate that. So I think the answer to the question is going to come down to how often your systems, like specifically if it's your security systems, how often they're collecting and scraping and sending out logs there in Azure, and what that frequency is or what that cadence is, to then send it over to us. We'll collect it and then we'll immediately process that and then start revealing that to you folks in the form of dashboards and pre-built queries and searches. And in the case of our modern SaaS SIEM solution, Cloud SIEM Enterprise, we'd be able to actually start making sense of that data and start looking for threats within all that data, correlated with all the rest of the data that you've got across your environments.
Okay, and there's one other question here about what types of data sources can Sumo inject?
Oh, types of data sources. Yeah, well, as Aaron mentioned, we've got this multi-tenant service that can ingest any kind of data structure and turn it into insights. But to be a little bit more specific than that, we have this concept of a free marketplace of these apps that we've built, which represent integrations that we've got with different data sources. I think we've got north of 200 now, with 56 of them alone being security relevant applications, which has these connectors all ready to go for those data sources. And when I say this, let me throw out some examples here, like coming from Carbon Black, coming from Crowdsource, coming over from Okta and other single sign-on solutions like that, as well as pulling in data from your cloud providers and your CDN systems like Akamai. What we have is that connector is built, pre-built dashboards to help visualize what that data actually means for you. That is already pre-built in these apps that we call them. And then we also have pre-built queries and searches, so you really don't have to be a SQL jockey and build all that yourself. We've got that ready to go. And then when it comes to data sources that might not be plug and play and covered by that, we still always have the ability with our sensors and collectors to pull in any syslog data that you've got. And with our SIM solution, we have a network sensor, which is a Zeek-based, formerly known as Bro, that's included. And so you can get all this great metadata and information from traffic analysis that we perform, deep packet inspection. So that's great, as well as sensor that can connect directly into your Active Directory and start getting some user and entity-based information to provide more context as you're looking at data. So I'd love to say any data, in the world, and it's pretty close to that. I haven't come across some folks that are missing data they've got. We've got it all covered there. And then when there are cases where maybe it's a custom program or something, or part of that 80-20 rule, we've got a team of engineers that work around the clock, and they actually start punching out and work with the customer on bringing in that data and making sure that it's captured. Because of syslog, I mean, pretty much everything is capable. Great question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I haven't run across any type of data asset that is stopped Sumo yet. So anyway, that's it's a very comprehensive list. One final question, and then Dana, if you don't mind, it's what security automation can you provide for our SOC team?
What security automation? Oh yeah, so yeah, SOC teams, security operations center teams.
Yep.
What we offer is with our platform, we have this add-on. I mentioned it before, our Cloud SIM Enterprise solution. This is our modern full stack SIM offering that we have, and it's part of an add-on to our core platform, which you heard Aaron describe and discuss with all the spectrum of use cases there. So one of the use cases by using a SIM is, of course, you want to centrally collect and get all your data in there. We know how tough that is, and one of the unique problems that we went out to solve with our technology is the problem of alert fatigue and the fact that there's so many alerts coming in, just thousands, all this noise that you need to be able to cut through. So what we created was technologies using automation and our algorithms to actually be able to automatically handle the SecOps workflow processes, which are usually brought to bear when it comes to identifying, triaging alerts, and then formulating your plan as to what you're going to do, and then putting those into a prioritized view and order of what is the most important threat in your environment. And we don't care. Is it on-prem? Is it in this private data center? Is it in this public cloud? Is it like the previous question? Is it over something that's lurking in Azure? We don't care where that is. We're correlating across all these different environments that you provide data to. And then we're automatically then going to surface that. And what we do is we basically are able to take down rough estimates. We're talking magnitude of millions of raw records coming in every single day. And then we're boiling that down to the thousands or so of what maybe traditional SIM vendors or so-called next-gen SIM vendors would call their alerts. We actually enrich that data with other third-party information and other context. We actually call those signals. So we're taking millions down to just a handful of thousands, and then we go further beyond what any other solution out there does. And this is what makes us unique for that whole automation perspective of workflows, is we're boiling that down to just a handful of what we call insights. And these are the critical incidents. It's our opinionated view, of course, but we're telling your analysts, we're telling the members of your SOC team, like, hey, you better check this out at 7 a.m. on a Monday morning. This is very important. And so that's unique. Nobody's actually able to bring that to bear. There are tools out there that folks have looked to hook APIs together and to connect tools together and then start to digitally perform their normal SOC procedure workbook for their incident response. But this is going beyond that. This is actually helping to automate that without all that hooking together. You can still do that. We work with SOAR vendors. We work really well with SOAR vendors. We've got some bidirectional integration. We've got some unidirectional integration with different vendors to be able to take actions. But that's what I mean when we talk about being able to automate those workflows.
Dana, thank you so much. Great questions, but even better answers. So we really appreciate that. Everybody, we're going to wrap it up. One last thing for the audience. If you have missed any of our previous chats, go to championsg/blog, and you can see and watch all of our chats we've had, including this one probably in the next 24 hours if you missed anything. So we will see you next week. Thank you so much for attending. Bye now.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.